Hello and welcome to this Affinity Studio tutorial where I am again helping John, who is a beginner using the Affinity Studio. He's still having problems using colors. I did a video for him recently about making a solid layer with color. I will add a link to that in the bottom of the description of this video. But in his latest question, he's done some text and he wants a white outline around the color, and basically he's using the layer effects, he's using swatches, and he's saying he's sort of worrying about why there is no white in the swatches. So I want to sort of look at that, but then also look at using colors in general in Affinity Studio to help other people who are also beginners. So I've started this new document and I'm just going to put a bit of text in here. So if you're going to add layer effects, first of all, I suppose it might help if I had a colored background. Let me just add a blank layer, put it below that layer, and we will just color it with, let's say, that color. So then if I do white text on this, a white outline on this text, it would be easy to see. So what we can do is add the effects to that using the layer effects and outline, and then the color button here. If I click on that, it will open up these color picker, and as like John did, if I come down to swatches, you have the colors. Now white, black and greys are not really considered to be colors, so what you need to do is select greys, where you have, it goes from black and then all the various shades of grey down to white. So you then have your white outline, and you can then easily add your outline. So that pretty much answers John's question, but I do now want to look at other uses of colors, or how you get colors. Let me just close that a second. So there are sort of two types of color buttons, for want of a better phrase. So like when you pick a tool here that uses colors, like what I used here, the fill tool, in the context bar, which runs along the top here and will change with whatever tool you selected, there is this sort of oblong button, and if you click on that, the color picker will open. The other type of color button is this round disc shape. So if you click on that, or double click on that, this will open a different version of the color chooser, but it is basically all along the same lines. So let me close that. So some tools will use the oblong button, some tools will use the disc. Now there is also a smaller disc here, but this is to do with the color picker tool, which is this eyedropper type icon here. So if you click and drag this color picker tool out, it will then, you can go anywhere on the screen. There's not much colors on this, but you could pick the blue, for example, or you could pick this color, and there's not much else in the way of color, but you can even pick the grays, anything you want. But if I select an area there, you can see that smaller disc has changed to that color, and if you click on it, it will then convert to that color. So that is a very quick look at the color picker tool. So what I would do is I'll come back to text here. Didn't mean to do that. Right. Now, with the text tool, up the top here, the actual color is a very small oblong button. So if I click on that, you have the color chooser, another version of it. Now, with all these color choosers, you have various options. A lot of people prefer this color wheel. You can also go for sliders. So you can either move the sliders individually, or you can just click anywhere on here and pick a color. And then you also have hex sliders, which is a similar idea, but again, you can just click anywhere on here and change the colors or use the sliders. Then you do also have CMYK sliders. They all work in a similar way. And then we also have like grayness, tint, and you don't get swatches on this one like you did on the other because it has its own tab, so you can do swatches that way. So there's various versions of the color chooser. Some will have the options in a menu, some will have them in tabs, so you can do gradients and colors and things like that. Now, the thing to remember here is and what version you are using. Like this is hex, so if I select white here, which is if I click right in the top corner or anywhere really at the top, it will be white. Now the hex code for white is FF, 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 whereas if I come down to the bottom and pick black, it's 000000. So you can either enter those numbers in here, like if you know what the hex code is, you can enter it into this box, or you can enter like 0000 in these boxes, so that you can enter the color by clicking somewhere in this area, or if you know the code, you can enter them either in these places. Yet if we come to the RGB sliders, white is 255, 255, 255, and black is 000. So you're getting the same color, they're just using different codes. I can't remember what I've been using since I looked at CMYK. So CMYK, bizarrely white is all zeros, whereas in the other versions the zeros would give you black. Whereas if I come down to black, if I can get there, let's just move all the sliders. So it looks like when it comes to CMYK, black is 100 across the board. So that is the sort of looking at the different color choosers. Now, let me just type in this word again. Oh, it's still using. Oh, I've still got the FX on. Let me write out a new layer. Alright, make that bigger. So the text here was just black, and the color next to it says highlight color. Now that is really just the background, but let's select a color here. Let's make that red, for example. If I draw out another area and write, so we got the black text and you have a colored background. Now this one here, like I said, there's no option that you can see for doing an outline around the text. Now for that you need to come to this A icon which opens the character panel. So you can do that here. So we got the font color, which is black, and the background color, which if I was this orangey color here. But you do also have the color to underline, which at the moment is set to none. If there is no color, it will be a white line with a red line going through it. So that is the underline color. You have the strike through color, which you can set. And down here we have the outline stroke. So let me just move that out of the way for a second, and I will draw it out. I forgot it's set to get rid of that. So this is up here, we have the none button, so I will set that to none. And I will draw out this here, and so we've got black font, and I'm going to double click. Where are you? Okay. Let's try that again. Yeah, click on the color here for the outline. I'm going to make that white, and I'm going to make it, let's start with 1 point. So if I start typing now, so you see the character panel has set up with a black font and a white outline. So you don't necessarily need to use the FX panel. You can preset this quite why there's no color button in the context bar when you use text. When it comes to outline, you seem to be only able to do it in the character panel. So that is two ways of getting a colored outline around text. Now if you're going to put more than one color around an object, but in this case text, it would be better to go by the effects route. So if I select the layer with an FX on it, which should be that one there, so let's move that one out of the way. So we'll select this one here. I will reopen the effects panel by just clicking on the FX. So we've got the outline, and it's set to 4.4. If I click on the plus sign, it will add another outline option, and if I pick a color here, we'll go for a red, for example, and I will just make this slightly bigger there. Go back to this one, so we'll leave that on white, and I'll make that even bigger, so I can have like 2 or more colors. You're not restricted to 2. You could keep adding outlines and adding extra colors around the object or text, which is something you can't do within the character panel. But if you are just going to be doing one color around the text, you could just use the character panel and start that way. The other options are these two discs up here, and they are also replicated down here. Let's get rid of that, and we'll start a new one. So you see, we have let's get a brush, get a pixel paintbrush, and at the moment the it's got set background is set to white and set foreground is set to black. So if I click on the black disc and I start painting, you have the black color. So if I double click on this disc, you have the color chooser, which is the biggest version of the color chooser, which is available from these discs. So you can pick from this area here. So at the moment it's set on red, but you've got the blue option there and sort of like magenta options, green, whatever. And then if you click around here, you will get the various shades of green, and that will be shown up here. So if we pick yellow, for example, and I click around, you can see that that button is changing to the area I am picking. But if I go right up to the top left, you'll have white. So as you can see, the hex code is entered there, FFF, and then the RGB code is 255 across the board. CMYK are all zeros, and HSL is 580-100. And if I come down to the black, as you can see, all these are zeros, and the CMYK is 72, 68, 67, 88. So this version of the color chooser has like all the options, and you can also use the downward drop down menu, and you can go for using sliders. So you know there are so many ways of looking at picking colors and using various types of color choosers. So hopefully I've answered John's questions, but I have also answered other people's questions about using colors within Affinity Studio. There are loads of different ways of getting to a color, and some of them will be up here in the context bar depending on the tool. Some will be in like the FX button, and also obviously the main color options which are there and down here in the tools bar. So I think that's will be about it. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.